Hello, and welcome to In the DeNovo, a series of video interviews with today's thought leaders on everything to do with treasury management, product management, and instant and faster payments, covering topics from payments to industry trends and other exciting subjects coming in the future. I'm Will Grace. I'm the host, founder, and managing director here at DeNovo Treasury. We're a consulting firm focused on helping financial institution leaders define strategy, transform client experience, and grow revenue in the treasury management space. Thanks for joining us and staying in the know within the DeNovo. Hello, this is Will Grace, host of In the DeNovo and founder and managing director of DeNovo Treasury. I'm pleased to welcome to our program Chris Spiek, Chief Product Officer at Autobooks. Since founding the Rewire Group in 2008, he has helped teams at places like Basecamp, Facebook, Intercom, and Dropbox define their product strategy by fueling supply-side decisions with a concrete understanding of consumer demand. He has worked for over a decade to formalize and popularize jobs to be done. His approach to product development alongside Bob Mesta and Clayton Christensen of Harvard Business School. In addition to his work in software, he's worked on and helped launch hundreds of projects in industries including CPG, finance, education, energy, automotive, health and fitness, and more. Read more about his work in Clayton Christensen's book, Competing Against Luck. I got mine right here. I just reread it, by the way. In addition, Chris is not only a colleague, but someone I was lucky to work with briefly at Autobooks. And I'm honored that he's agreed to join us on In the DeNovo. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, man. Great to see you. Great to catch up.
Yeah, it's good to catch up. Thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it. So first off, please describe to us what Jobs to be Done is to our subscribers and listeners.
Yeah. So it in a very sort of basic way, the way we think about Jobs to be Done is a framework and set of tools that anyone can use. It started off in product management and product development, but it's basically a set of tools that you can use to understand customer demand, consumer demand. So basically, the most traditional way of applying it is we have an idea for a product that we want to launch, something that we want to go out into the market with, and what we want to do is talk to customers and find out if they are actually struggling with the thing we are trying to solve. And a lot of times we have sort of abstract ideas of the struggle, right? So if I play it into Autobooks, small businesses need to manage their books and do accounting, and they need to send invoices and get paid. But if you're at that sort of very general, basic level, you could build millions of different things to service those needs, right? And what Jobs to be Done affords us is a way to talk to customers in a very specific way that gets us down to the specificity of demand that enables us to make product decisions and design decisions in a way that will make products successful.
So this is something that you apply to the product that you're taking to market to begin with, but then you're also using it in the product development life cycle to make decisions about the features that you add to the product. So you're getting a lot of feedback from the market, from the users of the product. And so this is something that you use over time to kind of weed out, right, the noise, right? And what should you actually add to the product? Because you get a roadmap that grows, right? You get hundreds of requests to add features.
Yeah. So I always envision it as a loop, right? So I always want to start with demand. So I guess I throw these words around a lot. I think of demand as the energy in the consumer and in the user, right? So in jobs parlance, we say a customer is struggling to make progress in their life, right? So I want my business to run smoother. I want my books to be cleaner. I want my customers to pay me faster, whatever it is, to use the Autobooks domain. And we call that demand. So as a customer, and a shopper, I woke up this morning with sort of a list in my head of like, I'd love for these things to be better in my life. And if I have time to work on these today, to shop for solutions, to call Will and ask what he uses to manage his books, whatever, I'll sort of spend some time and invest some energy in that. And that's demand, right? That's me as a customer wanting to make progress in my life. On the other side of the equation, we talk about supply, which is anything that we build on the business side, right? We can build products, technologies, things like that. And we have success when those two things connect. When we understand demand in a way that we can say, let's build this specific thing on the supply side, and then the customer will use it and take advantage of it. And to the point that you're making, I see it as a constant loop. We understand demand to the best of our ability, right? Get the most concrete understanding. We go back to our product and engineering and design folks and we say, hey, there's a bunch of customers struggling with this thing. Let's figure out all the different ways we could solve that, build it and launch it into the market. And of course, because we're not perfect, you don't always hit the bullseye. And then you go back and do it again. And all the people that adopted that thing, you say, what are you struggling with now, right? What are the new features that we need to add to this thing? How do we need to change it to make it better, to address your struggle better? And then you continue to evolve the product that way.
You know what they say about teaching an old dog new tricks. So I've been in the industry a long time, and I grew up in product development in an inside out, philosophy. This is definitely an outside in philosophy. So growing up in product development in banking, it was always about like what the industry is doing and what your competition is doing, and listening to your salespeople. And so it was a much different approach where we didn't talk to customers. We didn't listen to what they wanted. We were always product pushing. I'll call it product push. And so I'll admit that this has been, and you introduced this to me when I came to Autobooks. Actually, even before I came to Autobooks, you said, hey, as you're getting ready, go read this book. And I read the book, and it was completely like, it was foreign to me. Completely against thinking that I had trained for. So this is definitely the outside in approach to product development, against what I had done my entire career. So yeah, this is kind of that outside. You're listening and talking to customers every day, and even customers that have chosen not to buy your product, correct?
Yeah. So to be honest, like everybody starts the same way you and I started, right? And it is, I describe it largely supply side. So I came out of school into software development, right? And all I cared about was what's the latest, greatest whiz bang technology out there? How do I study that? Because everybody is excited, right? I talk to other engineers, and today it was crypto, now it's AI, right? We go through these phases, but how do I take that supply side material, technology, innovation, and find a way to, it's not the right word, but cram it down the throats of the shoppers, right? They should want to use ChatGPT for everything and use these APIs. And so we start from that method. And so when you talk about what's the industry doing, what are my competitors doing, there's this herd mentality, like supply side herd mentality. And there are breakout successes, right? But what I've found is it's not the way to have the most success in terms of product development. The funny thing is, you mentioned the salespeople. In my experience, the sales folks are always naturally the closest to demand. So they're out there. The good sales guys are very, very in tune with what their customers are struggling with and doing their best to bring it back and translate it to the product team. The bad thing is without shared language and shared context and a real desire to understand the customer, most of the time it turns into like, oh, the sales guys they're complaining about all the features we don't have. They can't sell the stuff that we do have. So what I found is you need same reason you and I had the conversation when you were coming into Autobooks, like, hey, well, this is the language we speak. This is our obsession with the customer. We're not, and you had all of this intuitively that you had sort of built up over time, but we're not out chasing shiny object. We are very closely tied to what our customers are struggling with, and we're building the next thing based on what that loudest struggle is at any given time. But I feel like, I talk to a lot of product folks, and more and more engineers, interestingly enough, over the past couple of years are really taking an interest in jobs to be done. And they all have gone through some version of the story you told. Started off very supply side, sort of building a bunch of stuff, and then realized I've got to figure out what the customer really wants if I'm going to be successful. And let me sort of figure out this jobs thing in the hopes that it, gives me some answers.
So getting back to kind of the roots of where you started, how long have you been? I'm going to call you first a practitioner of jobs to be done, not to be insulting.
Yeah.
But you are really, though. I mean, you had to start somewhere, and
Yeah.
you got started with those that actually were the founders of this. I'm going to call it a philosophy, for lack of a better term, right now. Or
Sure.
yeah, but it was Bob Mesta and Clayton Christensen. But then you were kind of one of the people that said, "Hey, how do we make this mainstream?" Right. So when did you get involved?
Yeah, so this is early 2000s. The story is, basically what I just described. So I was running a team of software developers, basically doing project work, right? So building websites, web applications, think early 2000 e-commerce sites, things like that. And business was great. This is like the Web 2.0, Web 1.0 days, right? Everyone was excited and having fun, but success was so varied, right? I do work for a customer and we'd have a breakout success. I do work for another customer, no adoption. Like we're doing what the customer asked and we're building the thing, but it wouldn't go anywhere. And it just felt like it was so unpredictable. And I loved the engineering side of it, still love to code and kind of get my hands dirty. But a couple of years into that journey as a developer, I realized if I didn't have a way to better predict success, I was just going to have a long career of sort of like celebrating and then getting a gut punch. It felt like very sort of chaotic, right? So I went deep into just trying to study this problem. So again, like straight out of school, didn't really know that product management or product development was even a thing. We were just like building things for clients, but went into need state analysis, studying persona creation. Like there's tons of great work and books and things that if you want to get your hands dirty into this space, you can do it. So I went in as deep as I could, and it felt good emotionally that people were like thinking about these problems. But what I struggled with was, as a developer and as somebody who was actually putting my hand on the keyboard building things, it all felt too soft. So I could develop a persona and learn everything I could about a theoretical user. But then when I went to make very concrete product decisions about what has primacy in this product and what do I downplay, what comes first, what comes last, all those million decisions that people will be familiar with, that you need to make when you're developing a product. When I sort of bounced that off the persona didn't give me anything back. And all these other tools that I tried to reach for, they were all too soft. And I was basically left to say, well, I've got my persona, I've got my need states, my shopper marketing, whatever. But at some point, I'm just going to have to make gut decisions. And I realized at that point that would probably be the crux of the issue of the difference between success or failure, is if I've got insights and I'm building off those insights, but almost every decision or trade-off that I need to make when I'm building the app just comes down to a gut decision, that's not good. So I had, call it fortune or the stars aligning or whatever. I had the opportunity to take on this gentleman, Bob Mesta, as a client during this period in time. And he would always come in with really interesting requirements, very against the grain. It was just a unique dude. And we worked together on a number of projects. Somehow I managed to kind of keep up with him. And he just had these breakout successes, just one after another. And eventually I just pinned him down. This is sort of turns into a mentee-mentor relationship where I think he kind of took a liking to me. The kid's doing what I'm asking and isn't asking stupid questions, and he keeps shipping and I'm happy. So I'll like answer his weird questions. But this was over a series of dinners and drinks where I was just saying, Bob, you've got to explain to me, like, how are you arriving at these things that you want to build, you want me to build, and how are they so successful? And to give you an example, it's kind of the end of the story, but right before we founded the Rewire Group and went on this journey of evolving jobs to be done, we built a website and sold 1,500 homes, new homes in the Detroit area online, all online, without a picture of a home, without any details of what the home looked like, granite countertops, wood floors, anything like that, all using this method of what are people struggling with their home today? How are they trying to envision the future and where are they trying to go? And we would basically have a dialogue over the web using forms, because this is 2004, 2005, back and forth, very, very primitive, but would basically work a funnel of shoppers into a model home to sell homes. And again, even as I described this to you today, you'd say, wait a minute, you've got a home website where you're selling homes that you're not showing floor plans, images of how we called it house porn at the time. It's probably not PC at this point, but images of homes, virtual tours, anything. You don't have a picture of a home on your website, and yet you're selling 1,500 homes. And this was one of the conversations like, Bob, I know you've got this philosophy. I'd like to show some pictures of the homes. No, Chris, this is how this thing works. This is what we're going to do. Okay, you've got to explain to me what's going on here and how you have these insights. And so back at the time, Bob had worked with Clay through the mid 90s, late 90s. Clay wrote The Innovator's Dilemma, which of course is wildly popular. And there's a footnote in The Innovator's Dilemma that references the jobs to be done framework. So Bob and Clay had gone back and forth, sitting in Clay's office over this concept of people hire products to do a job for us in our life and to make progress in our life. And that's basically the foundation. That's all we had at the time. So again, the stars aligned. Unfortunately, 2006, 2007, we all know what happened to our economy. The housing market was crushed. Bob exited that business. It was time for me to take this seriously and basically face into the fact that if I didn't understand this, I didn't want to do the success fail thing over and over again. I really wanted to have a deep foundation. So we founded the Rewired Group around 2006, 2007 to really go deep with Clay's blessing to say, go flesh this out, go find other product teams at companies around the world that are struggling with this and are looking for a new way to understand customer behavior and demand. And we spent the next decade basically going deep and fleshing this out.
And you are credited in the book with several of the use cases. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I think so. We were talking earlier, and you made the comment of like sometimes the best like addition comes from subtraction, right? I think you said it better. But I think one of the patterns that is always interesting to me is the disintegration of a product, and I think one of the most compelling case studies in Clay's book is the Intercom case study, where essentially they went to market with a tool. Des explained it, the founder of Intercom, Des explained it to me really, really well the first time we met, which is basically we went and had lunch and we sat down and he ordered a bowl of French onion soup. And he said, like, just think about how real this product experience is. If the chef behind the wall there is experimenting with a new recipe for soup, he's going to serve us the soup. And then in 10 minutes, he's going to walk up behind that wall and say, how was the soup? And just read our reaction. And he just got product feedback from us, right? And on the web, there's nothing close to that, right? We ship something and then we like scratch our head and look at Google Analytics and like, 30% bounce rate, 60% bounce rate. What the hell? Like we have no idea what's going on, right? So at the time, Intercom was posed as a way to help product developers launch something as a web application. And then like, how is it going? Let's follow the user through the app. Are you stuck? Can I help you? But through the jobs experience, they got great adoption for that job and then realized that it was being hired under all these different circumstances. So the support folks were using a shared Gmail inbox and it was CCing a bunch of people and they were all replying at once and like, oh, we look stupid because like we both replied and we gave different answers. We had sales guys now that wanted to use the feature, right? There are people browsing and I know the product team wants feedback, but I want to close the deal. So like, let me chat as well. So essentially they took one product, split it into 4 offerings, 4 products. All they did was subtract features. There was no addition, but if you're using the support feature, you don't need session replay and things like you can take things out, change the pricing dramatically, and grew. The growth rate was ridiculous. It was 7x over 3 years or 8x over 3 years. It just hockey sticked. But it's one of those great stories about you have a group of users. To the first point that I think you made, I call it putting some supply on the table. We know there's demand. We know product managers want to learn. We put some supply on the table. A bunch of people start using it. And then we don't go off and celebrate. We say, what is this doing for you? How did it help you make progress? How has it advanced your business? And we learn from that because it's never the exact thing that, we expected it to be.
Yeah. So this isn't something that's just about bringing a new product to market. This is something about kind of reinventing a product that's already there, right? And this is something you can apply to an existing product that's not selling well, or finding out why something isn't hitting the market and why it's not hitting the audience, right?
It absolutely is. So my story at Autobooks. So I've been here for 5 years, and for those that aren't familiar, we provide a suite of small business tools integrated into internet banking. So if you're a small business owner and you want to organize your books, send an invoice, accept credit card, ACH payments, all that sort of thing, you log into internet banking and you'll see us embedded in internet banking, and we can sort of provide those services there. When I started, it's basically exactly what you're describing. So we had from a technical perspective, a great set of tools that had been created and integrated into internet banking. And we had what I call the Chinese food menu of features, right? You want bill pay, you want automated bookkeeping, general ledger, balance sheet, send an invoice, accept pay, like sort of pick your poison here. What do you want, right? And adoption was fine, but it was growing fairly slowly, right? So the first thing that I did was gather the team up, and as you can expect, basically say I've recruited 10 people. We're going to spend an hour with each one of these small business owners. They've all been using our software for at least 90 days, 120 days. So they're beyond the honeymoon period. They're not just going to tell us that they love us. They're actually using it in their business. And we're going to go back to what we call the timeline. With everything going on in your business, in your treasury management consulting business, what in the world caused you to wake up one morning and think, I need a new way to manage whatever it is you needed to manage, whether it was your books or your invoicing? Like, how did this story start, and what started to propel you down this path? And then learn their entire journey to the moment that they signed up for Autobooks and then started using it, and whether it met their expectations. And to the outcome, essentially, like very, very early wins, I'd call them. So one was, again, to go back to disintegration, we learned that basically small businesses worry about accounting and bookkeeping twice a year. Once when they're doing their taxes. Second, if on the off chance that they're applying for a loan, they need to have all their books together. They think about getting paid every single day. Did I send that invoice or did I forget? Is the customer overdue? Do I need to reach out to bother them? How's my cash flow looking? Like, am I going to make payroll, or do I need to call those customers and say, hey, your invoice is overdue and you're putting me in a bad position? It's constantly top of mind. So we basically took our one product, pulled it apart, made invoicing very, very front and center because it's what people were signing up for all the time, and then put accounting as an upgrade. You're using us for invoicing. We're handling your cash flow. By the way, we can handle all your books. So go in and upgrade. And of course, obviously, we're then a great small business tool for the bank and addressing that customer segment. But again, simple move that just increased adoption orders of magnitude, right? We now had people like, right, I don't really need accounting, but I didn't know that I could send an invoice from my internet banking tool and have the money go right into the checking account. Like, this is cool. I'll sign up for this today. And then the other piece was we basically created a payment link. So we found a lot of customers wanted to get paid, but didn't need to send an invoice. This is like the guy who shows up to paint your house. It's $5,000 to paint your house. There's no invoice. This isn't like cutesy invoice. You just told me $5,000. Here's the link to pay, put in your credit card information. It'll go right into my checking account. We found that demand very quickly just from doing interviews where people would say, I use your invoice, but it's like a formality. Like, you force me to type in what product, what quantity, blah, blah, blah. And I love the fact that when I send that out, the customer can pay and the money goes into my checking account. I don't have to move it from anywhere else. But the reality is, like, I just want a form that somebody can fill out to pay me. Again, like, quick struggle. Like, I'm using your product, but it's not right on the bullseye. I got to go through all this formality. Launched the payment link, which still today accounts for over 50% of the company's revenue 5 years later. Couple right. Interviews right there. Again, not Chat GPT, not all the sexiness, but right on the nose in terms of customer demand.
The interview process is fascinating. I sat through a whole week of those when I joined Autobooks, and the probing questions that were asked the depth at which you go to get to that problem that's being solved, or why they're purchasing you know the product, why they're hiring the product, I guess.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me, the depth that the interviewer gets to. It's a skill, and it's something that you really have to practice, I think, to get to that level. And you have a great team that does that really well.
Yeah, it's definitely a learned skill. It's very uncomfortable as a product manager to do this for just weird social reasons, right? We're not used to peppering people with questions, weird questions, for an hour in a row. The interesting thing is, on the flip side, it's always cathartic for the interviewee. So I've done 1,000 interviews for every industry under the sun at this point. And I will say, people are different, but I'd say 40-50% of them, when you get to the 45-minute mark, the person will say, we have uncovered so much about my decision-making process and how I went through this process to pick the product that I did. They basically thank you. Thank you for helping me sort of unpack this. And I understand why I did what I did. And even though I'm doing it for me, right? The product manager, I need to know the insight. They're thanking me for the questions. But when you're doing it, it feels like, man, I'm grilling this person and I'm wasting their time. Once you get used to it, it's fine. But the whole goal is really just, it takes a lot of cues from interrogation. You need to recreate the scene of the crime or the scene of the purchase. And I just and it's weird stuff. Okay, you signed up for Autobooks, Will, and you did it in May. Was it a weekend or was it a weekday? And you're going to go, why the hell? Right. Was it raining or was it sunny? Right. And people look at me, go, why can we get to the features? What features does he use? No, I need him to know. And then when you think, oh yeah, I went out for a coffee and it was sunny that day and I was bummed that I had to work, but I needed to solve this one. And then all of a sudden you remember the whole story. Right. And I was thinking, this is never going to work. I don't even know who these are. Now it's it's flowing out of you, but it just takes practice, and you got to get used to being a little uncomfortable to get to that level of detail.
It is like you're an investigator. You're asking these very minute details about where they were at a point in time. And it was amazing. I was like, wait, why are we getting who cares if they were driving or if they were at home, when they were thinking about this? Do you remember if you were driving or if you were at home? When was the first time you actually thought about that you had a problem? But it really made sense in the journey when you finally got to the decision making.
And the other thing that you can tell, because you listen to and you participate in interviews, is when you get there, you can tell the difference between when they're making something up to appease you and when they're telling the truth, right? And all of those techniques, and they're not obligated to anything. You're giving them a $100 Amazon gift card. You're asking their experience, but you can look at somebody and they say, oh yeah, I think it was the weekend. Was it rainy or it was rainy? Okay, you're not engaged. And a couple minutes later, they realize, I'm not here to catch you in a lie. I'm not here. I really just want the story. And you see them start to really, and then those details come out, and that's where it's it's irrefutable, right? So to get back to the beginning of personas being too soft, what I want is concreteness. I want the other side. I want to be able to sit a group of engineers around the table and say, hit play and listen to the emotion in Will's voice as he talks about struggling to get people to pay the invoices and how he wanted Autobooks to help him and how we have an opportunity to solve this. And the concreteness of, here's the exact struggle and here's what he needs or what he's hoping for. That's the goal. If you can get to that, you've got product managers that are now lighting up, and you've got engineers that are aligning to it, because okay, this isn't somebody, it's not some sales guy BSing me, oh, they need this, they need that. It's not some product guy trying to sell me a book of goods. We can all listen to these interviews, and the emotion in there and the struggle is all right there. And all right, let's go solve it. Now you've got an aligned team that's going to go ship something really amazing.
I want to shift gears real quick and talk about, jobs to be done as a framework and how it compares and contrasts maybe with some other frameworks, maybe Agile is a delivery mechanism for delivering technology. Do those things work together, or do they clash, or how does that all work
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it really so the hard part is these words are shortcuts. Even with job, there are folks out there doing a great job of applying jobs to be done and doing a crappy job of applying jobs to be done, right? Personas are the same way. The more I studied personas, years later, I got back to like the origin story of the folks that came up with this, and it has a lot in common with jobs to be done. It has nothing to do with getting in a room and saying you brainstorm up your persona and all the BS. I feel the same way about the delivery techniques, right? I think there are people doing a really good job at applying agile, and then there are folks who have taken sort of the minimalistic approach, and if that's your method, you're not going to end up with good software. As a little bit of an aside, at Autobooks we have partnered with Ryan Singer, who was previously at 37 Signals, Basecamp, the product manager or project management tool set, to come up with a new way to manage delivery, and it's called Shape Up. And what we found is a jobs insight works very, very well as an input to the Shape Up process. So we go through a process of basically doing jobs interviews. We then do what we call framing, which is, okay, we heard a bunch of people like Will, small business owners, struggling with this thing. Let's go into our data and understand if we can size this struggle and basically come to an understanding of, if we were to solve this problem, what does it mean to Autobooks as a business in terms of revenue, profit, margin, things like that. And then if we can validate framing, like this is the thing to go solve, we then go into shaping, which is a cross-functional group of engineer, designer, product manager saying, hey guys, we've got really good customer conversations. We got a lot of data here that says if we solve this, it's worth our time. Now let's work collaboratively to think of all the different ways that we can go solve this. And then we have an autonomous team of engineers that will block their calendars uninterrupted to go just solve that problem. And we've been fortunate. It does away with all of the agile ceremony, not to use that as a derogatory term, but stand-ups, check-ins, story points, all of the what I would just consider overhead is sort of set aside. And we've been able to we've just been fortunate in that we've played a role in developing and evolving that framework as well, and we've been successful in terms of shipping consistently with it.
So you work with a lot of small businesses, a lot of small financial institutions. Small financial institutions tend to outsource their product development. They purchase packages of products and services, and from core processors and third parties, much like Autobooks. And do you think there's a place for those FIs to start implementing something like jobs to be done? Like, how would you recommend that they apply that to what they do today?
I think it's a check, to be honest, and credit to Clay for writing the book and the work that Bob did, and the decade that we put into this. I'm shocked at. We work at a lot of community institutions. We also work with top 10, top 20, and I'm just shocked at how many conversations I have over dinner and at conferences of people that are now aware of jobs to be done and applying it in the financial institutions. It's really, really refreshing. I think our position is financial institutions partner with Autobooks because they trust us to deliver their small business strategy, right? I think traditionally, and you know this much better than I do, strong commercial upmarket treasury offering, great retail offering. What's in the middle? We don't know what to do with all these small businesses. And then Autobooks shows up, here's bookkeeping and accounting and all that, all that sort of thing. So I think from the product manager, treasury management officer, whatever the buyer is or the person managing the portfolio at the FI, they tend to trust us because they understand jobs to be done, and they know that we're out applying this method and that we're going to build the next thing that serves the small business owner, which is going to indirectly and directly benefit the bank. And my experience is the more tuned into jobs to be done that person is, the more trust they have, the more excitement they have towards the product. And it basically comes in the form of like, we've done some interviews, and you don't need to go deep. We talked to 3, 4, 5 business owners. Here are the struggles that we found. Oh, and it just happens to really, really closely align with the way Autobooks, describes the struggles that they solve. So I think it's a confidence builder. Again, like, how much trust do you have in your vendor? When you're able to say, I'm hearing the same thing from my customers that my vendor is claiming to solve, it's positive. And then anytime, even outside of Autobooks, I think anytime the folks at the financial institution on the product side can get good at doing these interviews and having these conversations with their customer base, even if you're just an integrator, like you said, and you're going out and you're shopping the conferences and you're integrating products, having your hand very close to the pulse of what your small business owners are struggling on, it's going to benefit you, because it's ultimately your job to put together the portfolio of products to serve these folks. And you, in my opinion, it's your responsibility to be close to that.
So what would you say to a doubter of the jobs to be done approach?
Yeah, in my opinion, it all comes down to struggle. So I guess I'll tell a story to answer it. Last week I was at this conference in Raleigh for a week at Business of Software, and I presented with my VP of Engineering, Justin. We talked about jobs and how it relates to shape up the engineering practice, and we had a great hour-long presentation. We talked about sort of how we had made progress and how we use shape up. We got off stage and we grabbed a coffee and, kind of hugging and high-fiving. We think that went really well. Good feedback from the crowd, all that sort of, we've all been there, right? And then Justin pulls out his phone. And he goes, oh, that didn't take long. As a VP of engineering, hey, I need you to come talk to my group. We're not facing any of these problems yet, but I want to get ahead of them. And I want you to teach us shape up so that we can sort of get ahead of these things. And he put his phone in his pocket and he said, well, I know exactly what I'm going to tell that person. They're not struggling, right? So I can go in and I can pitch a new thing, and you're going to look at me like I'm from outer space. Agile has been around for 20 years. We're great at it. We're shipping on time. You're talking about all this new gobbledygook. Like, I'm sure you're in love with the new whiz-bang thing you developed a year ago, but we don't have a problem. So why are you talking to us, right? I think about jobs this, and he wrote back, love to help you. I'm here to talk, but I can't present to your team. Your team doesn't have anything they need to solve. When you guys, and I hate to say it, when you guys start struggling, I'm here to help you. Clay had a great quote, which is, a question is a space in the mind where an answer will fit. And I live that every day. If you don't have a question, so I'm sorry, this is a long way to get around to your question.
No, this is great.
If you're a doubter and jobs isn't a fit, I'm not here to preach to you, right? Personas are working for you. Your gut is working for you. There are great Steve Jobs, right? I think in his soul, I'd like to think that he knew jobs, but the feeling is like he would wake up and he would have his mind on the heartbeat of the customer, and he would be able to envision a new reality for that customer, and his gut would go for it. So if you don't need jobs and whatever's working is working, then go for it and continue on. And when you start to struggle, and you see successes are sort of outpacing, failures are outpacing successes, and you need something new, pick up Competing Against Luck and see if it speaks to you.
I love the philosophy. If you're not struggling, how can I convince you? I love it. So where do you think we'll see? What do you think we'll see from jobs to be done in the next 12 months? Is there a place that we'll see it applied that maybe we haven't seen it applied before? Or what? Yeah. I mean, what do you see for this?
I'm actually excited about the software side of things taking hold. So one of the challenges with jobs is around the analysis side. So you do a bunch of interviews, you ultimately end up what we call clustering on causality. So very simply put, it's easy to cluster on demographics, right? We did a bunch of interviews. These are bigger businesses. These are smaller businesses. These are in the entertainment industry. These are in the travel industry. Like, you segment by characteristics. What jobs proposes is you segment by causality. These people all had the same struggle and the same progress. They might be across industries, big, small, all that sort of thing. But the analysis tends to be tricky. Like, you need somebody to teach it to you. There's a little bit of statistics involved. You can get through it. But coming from the conference last week, more and more people who I'm talking to are facing into that struggle. And because there's so many software people that love the framework, they're basically talking about, I'm building the SaaS application where you can load your interviews in, you can do analysis, you can sort of manage insights and things like that. So I think the groundwork has been laid. I don't think there's an industry like stone unturned at this point. I think it's touched pretty much every industry. But I think having software people invest and build some platforms that we can use to manage insights and share insights and things like that is going to be exciting.
That's great. Well, this has been really fascinating and extremely informative for DeNovo Treasury and our clients and our prospects and our subscribers. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much. And for all of our clients and our prospects and subscribers, thank you for tuning in. And for everyone out there who is not familiar with Autobooks, or if you're not a client, go to autobooks.co and learn more about Autobooks, a great platform for small business clients. And I'm not only a former employee, but I am also a customer and a user
Awesome.
of Autobooks. So I will give a shameless plug to Autobooks. And Chris, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great. Check out autobooks.co. And if you're at a financial institution or in another business and you're interested in applying jobs and maybe you have questions, reach out, find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest place. I'm always happy to be a sounding board and help you overcome whatever challenges you have or get you on the right track.
That's great. And thanks for tuning in the DeNovo, and have a great day, everyone. I love it when a good conversation comes together. We are so lucky to have friends willing to sit down and talk with us about the industry. For more content like the video we shared today, check out our website at denovotreasury.com and our YouTube channel at DeNovo Treasury. Thanks for joining us today for In the DeNovo. See you next time.